Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and I hope you all had a great weekend. Today, this Monday, I was kind of surfing through the video topics that I wanted to get into, and I settled on Starfield because things are quiet. Too quiet. We just got the biggest ever Starfield update in June. We got a good look at Shattered Space on top of that. Todd provided more information beyond that in my interview with him, but since then, it's quiet. It's mid-July, and this expansion is apparently arriving fall of this year. So only a few short months to go, and we haven't seen it since, which I think is a little more understandable, but we also have no other sort of release date information. And so what I wanted to do was dive a little bit deeper into what Xbox has been up to, and in turn help deduce where I think Starfield Shattered Space will land and what exactly this expansion will entail narratively, because if you've played Starfield and beat it, you'll know that the ending of the game and a lot of the lore that's present in the game sets up this expansion very clearly. And I'm wondering what's going to happen moving forward with this expansion. So welcome to a Starfield speculation / discussion video. If you're new here, you're into Bethesda Game Studios content, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. Let's begin at the top. So rewind a little bit with me. June 2024 showcase had a lot of great games shown off. Starfield Shattered Space was one of the first trailers we did see throughout that show. And a lot of people afterwards said Xbox didn't show you anything yet. Jez Corden, a reliable Xbox leaker who works at Windows Central Gaming, said the crazy thing about the Xbox showcase is that's only part of what's coming, followed up by Paris Lilly saying, I told you the showcase was going to be good, and the wild thing is I had multiple people at Xbox tell me there was so much more they could have shown, and Gamescom is shaping up to be a big show too. Now, at first, that felt like maybe people as part of the Xbox fandom and content creation community might have been just gassing up the show and and there's more, right? Which is unfortunately been the tagline for Xbox for a while, as they've had great stuff and a lot of stuff coming up looks good, but for Xbox fans, they're kind of tired of hearing the same rigmarole of, see you soon, how great this is going to be. Like, people want stuff now from Xbox. So things became a little bit more firmed up when Xbox posted on their Twitter account, the team of Xbox is heading back to Gamescom. Visit us at our biggest booth yet, August 21st to the 25th. And they mention here what games will be there. And they say you can expect to see Age of Mythology Retold, Avowed, Aura History Untold, Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred, Diablo Immortal, The Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76, Towerborn, and World of Warcraft, The War Within. More to come. Now, missing from that list, suspiciously, is Starfield Shattered Space. You have to take a look at it as two things. Number one is that Starfield Shattered Space would be releasing into a very cluttered fall period. And it's also a fall period with big RPGs dropping, such as Avowed from Xbox, or if you're looking across the pond, if you will, you have something like Dragon Age the Veilguard. So there are multiple big RPG experiences coming out in a crammed holiday period. Will Starfield Shattered Space even release then? I think there's still a pretty good chance if it goes early. So right now, if you take an honest assessment of the Xbox release cadence and you look at what's happening here with Gamescom, I think it's safe to say that with a lot of games from Xbox, you're going to get a good look at them during Gamescom with some sort of release date attached. If there was one critique I had from the phenomenal June showcase that Xbox put together, it's that dates were missing on things I really expected to have dates. Like, we didn't get one for Indiana Jones or Avowed. Like, they were just outright missing, but I thought those were for sure dated ones, especially because the rumor mill kind of led us on that this has already been firmed up a little bit internally at Xbox. You had The Verge claiming that, Avowed's going to arrive in November and Indiana Jones will arrive in December. So it allowed us to kind of deduce when these things would be coming out before Xbox said anything at all. But the reality is they may be holding back more information for this new showcase happening toward the end of August. So I would say mark Gamescom on your calendar, not just for Starfield Shattered Space, but also pretty much everything Xbox. When you look at the rest of their schedule, you have October with Black Ops 6, and everything we've seen with Call of Duty has suggested Xbox is going all in on it. We have the beta for Game Pass subscribers beginning at the end of August into early September, into an open beta afterwards. We now know Black Ops 6 is day one in Game Pass. We're seeing Xbox really hedge their bets on the big thing they purchased to try and push Game Pass to that next level. So I don't see anything moving that or interrupting that at all. Call of Duty is going to be their main moneymaker moving forward. Avowed in November shares also a same window as Microsoft Flight Simulator, so you have two pretty big exclusives dropping, but they're at least far enough from each other in the terms of genres that I don't think they'll collide. So based on how Avowed shaped up and how Microsoft Flight Simulator also looks great, I think they're both going to stick their date. Indiana Jones is a little bit of a head scratcher in that December I've never felt is a great month to release games. That dates back to even something like Halo Infinite. So I feel like Indiana Jones is one of those games I could see slip. So that could maybe create some extra room for something like a Starfield expansion if you let Indiana Jones go at, say, the top of the year. So Xbox could have a full 4 quarters of big game releases like they've been shooting for, especially because you already have like 2 or 3 going here in the holiday fall period. But Starfield being in the fall period would likely eliminate it from December unless it got a delay. So really Starfield has to fall in one pocket, which I think is September. You look at September, and I think Bethesda Game Studios has been pretty clear time in, time out. They love themselves a, quote, nice date, right? I think Starfield was the rare exception to that, but they originally were trying to do a nice like 11/11, if I'm remembering correctly, and then they eventually moved into September 1st when they had to delay the game by almost a year. So a nice date to me would be Starfield's release date 1 year later, right? Just like marking the annual expansions being 1 year from the Starfield release date, and then the second expansion being 2 years removed from it, and so on and so forth. When I spoke to Todd Howard, he did confirm that Starfield Shattered Space had been in development since the game had released. So they've had a little bit less than a year to make this expansion. He defined it around the size of Far Harbor, which is my personal favorite ever Bethesda Game Studios expansion / DLC, which makes me really excited. So when I think you look at scope versus development timeline, they're in a pretty good spot to deliver in that pocket. So I feel like Starfield will land in September, and that would kind of work out well, especially if you have this big booth for Gamescom, and then you deliver a big expansion like a little bit more than a week later after that. I think that'd be a pretty good feeling. So people who see Starfield and maybe get excited by it can really dive in immediately, which has low-key kind of been the key to success for Bethesda Game Studios with Starfield as of late. Like they dropped a massive June update with mods and all these new quests and everything, 60 FPS, just out of nowhere with the showcase going on as we were watching it. So there were some pretty big things happening for Starfield immediately, and that was getting people to jump back in. So I could see a world where they're like, hey, and the Starfield expansion's dropping next week. See you there when the next trailer hits. So maybe that's why things are a little bit quiet. The other question I really wanted to tackle was story-wise. So when you look at Starfield Shattered Space, this is basically focusing on House Faroon. It's going to take players to their homeworld in this particular city, and you're basically going to uncover the secrets of, as they describe it in the Bethesda Game Studios trailer, the secrets of the followers of the Great Serpent. We already know it's all on one planet, so kind of what you see is what you're going to mostly get in the terms of the trailer itself. I don't think it's going to switch up dramatically from what's on display there. And the question I really had as I started thinking about Shattered Space more for this video was, oh, I wonder if they're actually going to tell a complete story here, which I know sounds a little sad, but one thing we learned from my conversation with Todd Howard is, okay, Starfield is going to have continuous expansions, at least for a while. There's at least going to be one more big story expansion. But when you finish the game in the terms of the main story and all the faction quest lines, you were left with a very interesting feeling, in my opinion, because a lot of the game felt complete on a quest front, but then there was just House Faroon kind of sitting there. If you did all of Andreja's quest line and spoke to her about it, there was a little bit of more to give on that side of the fence. But in my opinion, outside of game mechanics, which I was hoping they would add, like better exploration, better on-foot traversal, which they're doing that with, for example, the vehicle. We'll see if they add more locations to some of these derelict planets. It felt like otherwise, most of the story was tied up. There was one element toward the ending of the game, which I will not spoil for those who have not played Starfield to its completion. And then another element here with the Great Serpent and what's going on with House Faroon and why is their homeworld a secret and why is like Andreja kind of hesitant to romance you because of her ties to this homeworld, to this religion. That sort of choice being made there was very difficult on her. It's why it made her the most interesting companion of the bunch, because she definitely had the most character and the most lore backing her up. So will it just wrap up that story that kind of began in Starfield that was left open-ended, and then will we eventually get a new expansion that kind of starts from the ground up, or will Shattered Space actually set up the next expansion moving forward in this more continuous House Faroon storyline? I'm hoping that it wraps things up, just because there's already a bit of worry with what's going on with creation content, that Bethesda Game Studios may be trying to kind of piecemeal content and give you like 20-minute quests for $7, which was a really weird feeling when the free quest that took you almost an hour to do was actually the one that gave you more time, more content, more quality than the thing you were actually paying decent money for. And so while it's more official, larger scale, paid content, I do worry about this continuous evolving story within a part of a faction, because that's kind of what happened on a smaller scale with Creations. And if Bethesda continues to kind of piecemeal out a storyline, I just hope this feels more fulfilling, because part of the intrigue for Starfield long term is it's open-ended, but I do hope they get a little more conclusive, like, hey, this is what's happening with House Faroon, here's how you impact it, and that story ends there, and then moving on to the next beat. Obviously, I don't want to be too definitive, because we'll see what the story is when we get there, but I do look at it as sort of what has happened to Bethesda recently, how they so far haven't really heavily adjusted what's going on with Creation Club yet, based on what I was told in my interview with Todd, versus we look at the state of Creations now, it's the same as it was about a month ago. So we'll see what kind of adjustments come in there. But yeah, it's an interesting time for Starfield because it's quiet. We're all kind of waiting for the big updates, like the vehicles to drop. We're wondering what other free things Bethesda's working on. We're also wondering when Starfield Shattered Space is going to drop. And I think we have a good window / idea of when we're going to see it next. As for the release, I feel like it's going to be sooner rather than later, to kind of amp up some of that excitement, get more people in when maybe they weren't planning to, especially with such a busy period. It feels like it's got to be September or nothing. If it releases in the middle of October or the middle of November especially, Starfield's just going to drown there. And I feel like they might also be waiting for some of their competitors, like a Dragon Age, to see what they're doing, and then they'll drop around that potentially. So we'll see in due time, ladies and gentlemen, but thank you so much for joining me in what was a very fun, speculative journey. So let me know what you're thinking about Starfield Shattered Space down below. When do you think it's dropping? Are you looking forward to it still? Or do you just have other plans for the kind of fall / holiday period? Looking forward to seeing your thoughts, your speculation on both story and release windows. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.